Should you give less effort on low-paying gigs? No, you should not, and I'll tell you why. Now, sometimes it's inevitable that due to certain circumstances, you have to half-ass something. It happens, I've done it. But it's never a good idea to half-ass a gig. It's never a good idea to half-ass something, in my opinion. I'll tell you why. I'll start with a story. I used to play on the wedding gig circuit a little bit, and if you've played a lot of those kinds of gigs, you know that it can involve learning a lot of songs. Now, if you're in the flow of playing those kinds of gigs, then you probably know all the songs already, and you can kind of just show up, play, get paid, and not spend a whole lot of time outside of the gig learning songs. But if you don't play a lot of wedding gigs, then you probably don't know all the songs, and it can be a huge deal to learn like 50, 60, 70 songs just for one gig. Now, me personally, I never played enough wedding gigs to fully get into the flow of it, so it always sucked. Every time I said yes to a wedding gig, I'd have to learn this massive set list. It would consume my entire week, and it never felt like it was worth the money. So eventually I said to myself, okay, here's how I'm gonna handle this. I'm not going to let this consume my week. I'm getting paid like $250, $300 to learn all these songs, drive over an hour. It doesn't feel like a good situation, so I'm going to put in an amount of effort that makes this situation work. I'll make a Spotify playlist of all the songs on the gig. I'll play down it like once a day in the few days leading up to the gig. I'll show up and I'll play, and it'll be whatever it's gonna be. I'm not gonna know all the songs that deeply, but I'll know it enough to get through the gig, you know? So, is that a valid mindset to approach a gig with? Well, you know, I mean, there's reasons to do that kind of thing. I'm sympathetic to the notion of like, well, I'm only getting paid this much, so I'm gonna put in this much effort. I'm gonna give you this much of my time. Fair enough, you know, that's like, it's an understandable way to think. But what happened on this gig was that I showed up, and for some reason, this one particular time, I was with like the A team of this wedding band agency. I was with like all the best people who knew all the songs real well. They were like wedding musicians as their main gig, and they did a great job. And I did a really bad job. I just remember not knowing the songs that well. There were even some cases where like a song would start with the keys, and like they'd look to me to start it, and I'd be like, can one of you guys start it? You know, and one of them would start it, and I'd be like, oh yeah, like it's that one, and then I'd be able to jump in because I like didn't know the intro, or I forgot what it sounded like, to the point where I had to like hear a little bit of it first to start playing. And anyway, I did a bad job, and after the gig, I apologized to the rest of the guys in the band. Just fully was like, I didn't pull my weight, I didn't practice hard enough, and I'm sorry, you know. They acknowledged that, like, yeah, like you didn't know the songs that well, and they appreciated that I apologized. So why is this such a bad thing? I mean, I may have had a bad gig, but it didn't take me that much time of preparation. I didn't let it consume my week. I saved some time, right? Well, here's the thing. There's a ripple effect with the things that you do that extends far beyond just the gig that happens to be right in front of you. There's now this whole group of musicians to whom I am just that guy who showed up and did a bad job. That's their opinion of me. A group of good musicians too. And that's a really bad thing. There's this principle in the music world, but also just generally like the artistic career world that I like to call things lead to things. And if you've seen my other videos, you've heard me talk about this. It's a pretty simple concept. It's just that things lead to things. You do this gig, and then you meet somebody who calls you for that gig, and on that gig, you meet somebody who calls you for this gig, and before you know it, you have a whole career after years of just doing stuff and meeting people and making connections and saying yes to things. So I think it's really important to treat any scenario like you never know where it's going to lead. Like you're always auditioning for the biggest thing that anybody around you might be connected to, that they might call you for even years later. I mean, if you've seen my video about how I got the Lauryn Hill gig, it was in a totally unexpected way. I got that gig because this dude who I played like one church gig with randomly years ago saw me live streaming on Facebook during COVID to like nobody doing ambient synth music. And I remember at the time feeling like, I'm doing these live streams and like nobody's tuning in. This is so stupid. This is so embarrassing. But like the one person who was tuning in was the one person who called me for like something really big. So you really never know who's watching, you never know where things lead, and so I think it's really important to show up to everything with your full effort. And knowing that now, looking back and thinking that there was a whole group of good musicians who is definitely never going to call me for anything because I did a bad job and they'd probably have a bad impression of me, that's a really bad thing. That really hurts me. And I'd way rather have the good opinion and impression of a group of people than whatever time I saved that week by kind of phoning it in. So all that to say, should you give less effort to low-paying gigs? I think not. I think you should never give less effort to anything if you can help it. I think you should bring your full effort and your full focus to anything that you say yes to. And if you're not going to do that, you shouldn't say yes, which there's no shame in at all. Okay, that's my ramble for today. Like, comment, and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. If you want to take lessons with me, there's a link in the description. I'm teaching piano lessons now. You can go to my website and you can sign up. Blah, blah, blah. End of the video. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.